to or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katie, otherwise known as the Vintage Academic. I'm a transfer student at UC Berkeley. I'm in my final semester in my undergrad. I'm about to graduate with my degree in anthropology, and in today's video I'm going to take you along a very short day in my life going to a protest at Berkeley. That's right, everybody. I have officially gone to my first protest at Berkeley. I am a fully indoctrinated UC Berkeley student, but I wanted to sit down before we get into the actual vlog and talk to you guys a little bit about what this sit-in was about, why we are protesting, and why it's very important to me. Before I begin, I do want to say that I recognize that there are a lot of really important things going on in the world right now, and I really appreciate that you're taking the time to sit here with me and listen to me talk about the Anthropology Library, the Anthropology Department, and why they are so important to me as a UC Berkeley student. And yeah, I just appreciate that you're taking time out of your day to be here and listen to that. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I should also say that I do not have a script, so I'm just kind of going to talk at the camera and hopefully explain things in a way that makes sense, that kind of sets up the actual vlog footage. So basically, on Friday a couple of weeks ago, the Anthropology Department and anthropology students got an email saying that the Anthropology Library, which if you didn't know is one of only 3 dedicated anthropology libraries across the nation, was going to be closed indefinitely due to staffing shortages. There was an absolute uproar over this, particularly within the graduate students in the Anthropology Department, since access to the Anthropology Department is really important not just for community and study spaces, but also because a lot of graduate students who are in the Anthro department rely on the materials inside the library to do their research and literature review. In addition, this decision was basically made with little to no input from the anthropology department, the graduate students, or the undergraduate students, and with little to no notification that it was happening, and it happened on a Friday, so we didn't have a lot of time to organize and say that we weren't okay with this. The email also went out maybe only an hour before the Anthropology Library opened, and the Anthropology Library is only open from 1 to 5 p.m. So there was only 4 hours where we had the opportunity to get together, to organize, and to protest the closure. As we were planning the sit-in, the head librarian for the Social Sciences Division did come in and speak to us and to talk to us about the reasons why this was happening. The main one that she gave was that they are facing an $8 million budget cut, and so they don't have the finances to keep the Anthropology Library open, and that they also had some resignations. So they literally did not have a librarian to staff the library and keep it running as a library where you can actually check out materials. And the reason why anthropology got the boot was because we do not get the same foot traffic that the other libraries do. This was also something that we had a problem with because A, we don't all consent to being counted. We also believe that foot traffic metrics are not the only, should not be the only deciding factor in whether or not a library stays open, because libraries are much more than just how many people are in there at any given time. And the Anthropology Library is also on the 2nd floor of the Anthropology building, and also doesn't get a lot of funding, so it's not the most attractive library. So there's a lot of issues with the fact that they decided that that's the reason why our library was going to be cut. The graduate students decided to organize, wanted to protest the closure and have a sit-in at the library. We sent out a lot of emails, a lot of social media usage to try and get as many graduate and undergraduate and faculty members in the library as possible for us to support us through this sit-in. I happen to be a part of it because I work with a graduate student on Fridays in something called the Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program. I went to the lab that afternoon and she came and was like, hey, we're going to a protest, come with me. So I was kind of there accidentally, but I'm really happy that I was there because I was able to capture footage and to help spread the word using social media about what was going on. So I'll let you guys see what happens in the rest of the footage, but I think that gives you enough information to kind of understand what's going on a little bit better. I also interviewed a graduate student while we were there, so you'll get the opportunity to hear these words straight from a graduate student. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and let the vlog footage roll now, and stay tuned to the end because I'm gonna give you a couple of closing thoughts. Hello everybody. Right now I'm getting ready to go to a sit-in. That's right, I'm going to my first protest, my first Berkeley protest. I'm officially a Berkeley student. I'm gonna give you guys the details later, but basically they are closing the anthropology building today at 5 indefinitely because of budget cuts and staff shortages. We are going to go sit in and protest them closing the library without giving us a plan of action for how they're going to rectify this problem. So I'm currently packing a bag and heading back to campus to potentially spend the night and get kicked out by campus police. So let's go. books to keep me company, notebook and iPad. Also got a water bottle and a variety of snacks. And I think last but not least, I will bring my blanket. I also have chargers, and yeah, last thing I need to pack is my camera, so I'll see you guys at the library. So I know you guys know what the Anthropology building is and the Anthropology Library. You guys have seen me study there before, and to be quite frank, it's a huge part of my identity as being somebody who is a transfer student at UC Berkeley, and identity is something that's kind of hard to come by, especially like a feeling of belonging in community. Being able to have a space that's for anthropology majors specifically from the undergraduate perspective is very important. I also know it's super echoey in here, so let me get upstairs. But it's not just an undergrad issue, it's also a graduate and faculty issue, so let's go to the library and take a look and see what's going on. Might be a little bit noisy in here because we are in a library full of people, but this is Melanie. She's a graduate student here at Anthropology at UC Berkeley, and I've asked her to explain a little bit more clearly like what the situation is and what's going on. So, you want to take it away?
Great, yes. So today we're here in the library starting to organize a sit-in to try and keep this library open. The Anthropology Library is a central hub for not only anthropology graduate students, but faculty, anthropology undergraduates, not only those who are majors, but those who take classes in the department. It has irreplaceable books and journals and gray literature, things that aren't published widely. Here in the library, this department has been one of the top programs in anthropology since its inception, and it's crucial that we keep this space alive. It's not only important to our research, it's also important to the continued survivance of our department and our status as a a top 5 program for anthropology. Having these resources is a great recruiting tool. We were told just today at around 11 that the library would be closing, giving us very little time before it closes today for the final time at 5 p.m. So obviously, beyond the fact that it's very unfortunate that this library is closing, period, we were given no time to organize, to start a dialogue with the library system. We've been here volunteering to use our own time, a very busy time, as graduate students to staff the library in the short term. That's how important this is to us. Larger library administration here at UC Berkeley has refused to even consider that as an option.
Other
alternatives. They've merely told us that they have to close a library and that our library is just not that important, that we aren't using these resources and that we have low numbers. But we can see here today how important this library is, how crucial these resources are, and certainly we're just coming out, if we can even say that, of a major pandemic. Students on campus is still very low, so we feel that it's very unfair to be judged on those metrics.
As far as I'm remembering, it was a series of budget cuts as well as some resignations, so it's a very severe staff shortages that are making it so that nobody is physically here on Monday to operate the library, and that's where we are asking for alternatives, for volunteering, for maybe leaving it open as a study space and not necessarily for the collections, just as a short-term solution.
Yeah.
And then currently we are developing, or I guess the grad students really are developing demands about short-term solutions as well as structural changes, and yeah, who are we in conversation with about that, do you think?
Yeah, well, we're in conversation, the department is in conversation with the Dean's Office of the Social Sciences to try and at least continue this dialogue. That's our major goal for today, create a space where we can start coming up with community-based solutions that aren't just coming down arbitrarily without any discussion with the department. Of course, it's devastating for all of us right now.
And I think that's been the most frustrating part, is that there has been a bit of a breakdown in communication, not just between the library services in our department, but also like the graduate students didn't know, the undergraduate students didn't know, and as an undergraduate student myself, I often don't know what's happening, and I find that really frustrating. So we're trying to make our voices heard so that we can tell them, hey, this is something that you can't just make a decision about without hearing the voices of who it impacts, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Having our access to our research materials cut off, to our study spaces, to our community spaces cut off, I mean, it greatly impacts our ability to continue with our research, to finish in the timeline that's been set out by the university. And so really it's shooting themselves in the foot, because ultimately we're going to need more funding to keep going into the program. It's going to be a burden on the system overall. So really it's short-sighted.
I'm particularly frustrated because they're renovating Moffett Library right now to have like all the bells and whistles, and if there's money for other libraries, why isn't there money for us? I find that incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just like other libraries lending a helping hand to our library in terms of staffing or anything. I know that there's complications because they're like interdepartmental, right? So it's not as easy as I make it sound, but
Yeah.
there could have been more done. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank
giving us
you.
that lowdown.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fill out the stuff on the Google Drive now.
Great, sounds good.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm really excited because some undergraduate students came, so love to see the undergrad support, but right now we have some like testimonials and a petition letter in a Google Drive. So I'm going to add my name to that. I'm going to fill out a testimonial about why I love the Anthropology Library, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do now. So.
All right.
Cool.
Just find a way to be sure it stays open next week, and then she'll get on now and talk about what that looks like. So I know she was looking for funds. I think the department can put in some funds for hire
speak to me. I mean, if somebody wants to say anything, I'm happy to listen before I say anything, because it'd be better if I hear what's on your mind before I tell you before I start announcing things. But if you want me to just start announcing things, that's fine with me too.
So it's getting dark out, so I'll most definitely update you guys more later, but obviously I'm no longer in the Anthropology Library. I'm actually at the bus station going to take the bus home to Davis to see James, but we stopped occupying the library because Charles Hirschkin, the head of the Anthropology Department, did respond to us by meeting with the Dean of the Social Sciences Department to see what kind of other alternatives we could come up with, because the issue is that they weren't looking for alternatives, looking for other options, trying to figure out a way that we could keep the Anthropology Library open. So the Dean of the Social Sciences is now going to inject some funding in order for us to have an attendant so that the Anthropology Library can stay open through the next week. Because it's Friday, that's like the most that they can do. So during the next week, they're going to be looking for more funding, looking to the provost to figure out how to hire a new librarian and keep the anthropology building open, not just for grad students and for grad student uses, but also for undergraduates, to try and keep it open through the rest of the semester. And then we're going to keep having this ongoing conversation about closing libraries permanently. I know that the university is like in a funding crisis, but when is it not? So yeah, it was really cool to see how many undergraduates and grad students came out to support this fight, as well as faculty members. We had a lot of faculty members there supporting us, and yeah, that is where I'm going to stop it for now, because I'm going to go get on the bus and go home to Davis. So I'm going to let future Katie take it away, and she can give you the full rundown. All right, so that was the the protest. It moved very fast, it was a little bit overwhelming, and yeah, we ended up not having to do the sit-in, obviously, as you saw, because the head of the anthropology department got into contact with the head of the social sciences division, and we were able to work out a compromise, essentially. The Anthropology Library is going to remain open for the rest of the semester as a study space until they can either allocate the funds to get a librarian, or there are going to be broader conversations about having more library closures in general. One of the things that is really important about the events that happened, and one of the reasons why I wanted to make a video about it and talk to you about it, is because I am very angry about the way that the university is letting itself allocate its funds, essentially operate the way it operates financially, because it operates more like a business than a university, and I have a real problem with that. They can't manage to allocate enough money to keep our library open when our chancellor and many more individuals on Berkeley's campus make well over $500,000 to $600,000 a year. The chancellor even received a pay increase this last year. For another example, Moffett Library, which is one of the most popular libraries on campus, it doesn't even have any books in it, but it's currently being renovated. The reason that they say is for seismic retrofitting, because it is not fit for if an earthquake happens, but they are also going to be adding an entire virtual reality space in that library. But they think it's okay to close down the Anthropology Library. And like I said, we're only one library of 3 in the nation that are dedicated specifically to anthropology, which is a big deal for any prospective graduate students who might be wanting to come to Berkeley. And it's also one of the really important things about it for me is I think it sets a precedent. It sets a precedent for valuing different types of education and different departments over the social sciences. And the humanities and social sciences have never been as greatly valued in our capitalistic society as other departments have, like law or business. I think that closing the Anthropology Library would set a precedent that is very dangerous across the nation. From the personal side of things, I was really upset that the Anthropology Library was closing because as an older transfer student, I am a transfer student, and I transferred during the pandemic, which means I've only really gotten 1.5 semesters to be fully incorporated into the campus culture and actually feel like a student. And part of that is the Anthropology Library and the Anthropology Department making this huge campus with 30,000 students kind of small enough, digestible enough for me to actually find a place on campus. Additionally, I'm a 26-year-old woman, and I don't really feel like hanging out with the 19 to 21-year-olds who go to Moffett Library. It's just not my demographic, and the anthropology department at Berkeley is something like 50% transfer students, so I know I'm going to be able to find other people there whose identities kind of mesh with mine and that I can feel comfortable in my major, surrounded by people who I identify with. One of the things the social sciences librarian said was, is it really so bad to go and study in another library? And my answer to that is yes. The Anthropology Library is a huge part of my identity. It's a huge part of many students' identities. It's an incredibly important part of many graduate students' research. It's really important that this is a resource that remains available to all current and future students at Berkeley's campus. So I think that's about everything that I had to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It means a lot to me. If you want to help us support the Anthropology Library and keep it open, we do have a letter that you can sign. It might be closed, but if it's still open, I'll leave the link below, as well as a Google form that you can fill out to include your testimonial if you have any experience with the Anthropology Library and you want to share your thoughts and concerns about it being closed, as well as any stories that you have about the Anthropology Library that are important to you and you want to share with the chancellor, the provost, and the head of the social sciences division, I think, is who it's being sent to. So again, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate that you took the time out of your day to hear me out on this topic. I know it's a little bit different from my usual content, so for more UC Berkeley and anthropology related content, go ahead and give me a follow, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!